Welcome to the Spool podcast. Unwind with Dr. Nils Roemer, Dean of the Bass School at UT Dallas.
So really thrilled today to have you here, Usman. You've been celebrated and written up as a multi-talented artist, as a composer, musicians, and then ultimately as the creator of what is now in the mouths of many, The Glassworker. Really exciting movie. So we can only recommend this to everyone. But it's not just what it is. It's actually what intrigues a lot of people is how the making, kind of came together. So walk us back, like this is about 10 years ago and then some, where you said, well, what I really want to do is something incredible, which making will also be, well, probably a little bit on the painful side of sorts as well, right? But hopefully you didn't know that at first, right? So how did you come to the idea of making this movie, The Glassworker?
No, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here. Thank you very, very much for having me. And definitely, if I had known how painful it would be 10 years ago, maybe I would have not been as enthusiastic to jump on this what I didn't know at the time, decade-long journey. I was 23 when I started, so it was a long time ago. To be very, very honest, I love the craft of 2D animation. I love cinema, I love music and I love drawing. So animation just felt like the perfect amalgamation of everything that I loved. And it was definitely the journey of a lifetime. And as you said, it certainly felt like an adventure in the beginning. But then you start realizing, okay, this is going to take a lot of work. And through gritted teeth and just nothing but obsession and passion driving me, we were able to finish it. And I'm very, very grateful. I got to work with a remarkable team in Pakistan and a remarkable team internationally to bring it to life. No one had ever attempted to make a film like this in Pakistan and in the subcontinent for a very good reason. It's difficult. And they learned a lot along the way. Learned what to do better next time, learned what not to do next time. And when I think about everything, it's just
just so that, we actually understand. Maybe we just open it, we just go just with this alone. I mean, that I think it already tells the story of I don't know how many hours and nights and days. And tell us what we're looking at here.
So these are the storyboards for The Glassworker. I made sure to draw the film in great detail because the team in Pakistan was inexperienced. I thought I have to draw everything in order for everybody else to do their work on the film. So I drew extremely detailed storyboards to just give everyone a sense of what each shot would require. Being an animator, I also keyframed a lot of the sequences in the storyboarding process. And then it just became a matter of executing. Storyboards took 17 months to make. So in the grand scheme of things, in the 10 years it took to make this, it didn't take very long. But everything else just required a lot of patience and seeing it through. To give some context to the 10 years, the film actually took 4 years to make. We went into full scale production, I would say January 2019. And we finished it end 2023. The 6 years before that were spent on actually conceptualizing the idea and then building a studio and training everybody on how to make the film. Maniam Paracha, the co-founder of the studio and art director on the film, and our partner in the studio, Nils Riaz, the producer of the film. Every moment was spent working out how we could make this movie, not just on the technical side, working with the artists, but also just financing it and building a production pipeline that would allow us to finish the film on time, which was very important to us. And then, we built a studio to make the film.
Just to jump in there, if you so casually say, well, the production of the film was actually only 4 years and we started 2019 and we were done in... Well, those were the pandemic years.
Oh, yes.
Those were not like, the years where everything was running smoothly and all things lined up so perfectly.
No.
So whereas lots of other folks who were just kind of trying to struggle through the best of their abilities, if one were to ask you, so what did you do during the pandemic? Well, I made a movie, I created a film. Let's talk about the company. I was like the the logo. Do you want to it's called mono,
Yeah.
which, immediately everyone thinks mono hands creativity. And that makes for a great explanation, but the real one is actually a different one, right?
Yeah. Mano is the name of my cat, and I named the studio after her. But exactly as you said, when Manuel Cristobal, our producer who came on board, uh, he said, "What a clever name you have for a hand-drawn animation studio." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, mano in Spanish means hand, and in Latin means hand." He said that is intentional, right? And I said, absolutely. That was
Yeah, I was right on. Of course, those were but it does. When I heard you tell that story the first time, I thought like how appropriate to name the company after a feline friend, because there's only companionship that will allow you to make it through, and you probably needed all friends, family friends, your wife, extended family, but also probably a very steady companion, your cat, just to kind of keep you company. Because I think, what we forget, when we kind of summarize you as this multi-talented artist who created the first ever fully drawn animated short, hand-drawn animated short, that, what we're trying to say is normally it takes a gigantic production company like a Disney or Pixar or Ghibli or something like that. So it's not usually the kind of thing where if you individuals just come together 10 years ago and say, this is really what we want to do. So the accomplishment is really one of like sheer willpower. Last week I interviewed here a football player, and he was like all muscular, and he was telling us about conviction and determination and all of that. And and I think you could rival him in a different way, because whatever it took him to get ready for what he needed to in a different way. This is a gigantic task, and you were also the manager of many, that you had to see through as well. Part what I find interesting is, you can, pile up the many challenges, the obstacles and possibilities. Was not a ready-made culture of animation in Pakistan. There's not ready-made schools that train, and you can kind of go on with this. But what I find also interesting is these various quote-unquote constraints and challenges compelled you also to make very clear aesthetic choices. And so I think, I encountered and met you luckily at the Lightbox Expo, and I think there were various presentations, and one of them, by nostalgia, I went into what was the 30 years Lion King. And so this is like a big product, but that production is all about movement, right? Incredible. Like when you look back, like the sheer amount of details of how the animals are moving, shaking the hats and something like that. Well, in order to do what you wanted to do, you had to go elsewhere, right? Because that would have, on that scale of your operation, been, this was already hard enough to begin with. But if I understand correctly, that would have been more difficult. So Tokyo, tell us about how important it was for you to kind of find another kind of aesthetic model that you both liked a lot, but also became more scalable to you, right?
definitely. I grew up loving the works coming out of Japan. Obviously, I think Studio Ghibli is a hero to many animators and just people who love film, but also the works of Walt Disney, especially the earlier works, Pinocchio and Bambi, Snow White. Those films are a huge, huge inspiration to me. But I knew that working on this film, it would be tremendously difficult to execute those many drawings. Those films, and primarily all of Disney's hand-drawn animated works, are known for their fluidity and movement, and the character animation is so expressive and incredible. It's amazing. But I knew that that is something that would be v- not impossible, because nothing is impossible, but would be extremely difficult to execute. So the more pragmatic approach I took, apart from obviously loving Japanese animation, is that um, that aesthetic primarily doesn't rely on movement as much. It's much more pose oriented when it comes to animation and the drawings that lead.
So
the
lean
poses.
into it more, like,
Yeah,
if I can react it, it's more like this, right? Rather.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So that sort of aesthetic would be something that would be realistically possible in the time frame that I had envisioned. again, I didn't know in the beginning it would take 10 years, but I thought that this is something we can execute, especially making a 98-minute feature film. That would be something that we could easily or execute easier, not easily, than something more akin to Disney's animated works. One day I would love to. I mean, if I had an unlimited budget and more time, I would love to focus more on just filling it in with drawings. I think everybody wants that sort of fluidity to the animation, but I wanted to make something that we could execute. And thankfully, that approach worked.
But it's an interesting, question that we often come up to. It's like, yes, we like here, the Bass School or you, we're always like, but if we only had unlimited this or that, right? And then we feel like we could do all these wonderful things. But in a strange way, it's sometimes the constraining factors that are empowering as much as the opportunities, right? And so you made it a little bit more challenging insofar as you not only developed the story, not only did all the storyboarding, but while at it, you thought, let me also co-compose the music, right? This is like something that you thought you throw in there as well. But I think it's the constraining also that channeled this all into something. But I want to talk a little bit also about the movie itself, not just about, because in the end of the day, you're done. And so now it's there. And it's also a remarkable story, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about, it seems also to the Glasswork. I mean, that in and of itself is like, if you think about, okay, what art forms have like these kind of overtures of something, kind of transcendent, some other kind of quality. Because this could have been also the painter, the musician or whatever. Why Glassworker?
Well, actually, to comment on something you had said earlier, yes, the limitations certainly allowed us to think out of the box and come up with creative solutions to help solve our problems on a technical level. And I did co-compose the score. I wrote a majority of the motifs for the characters. When I was just image boarding, before I had a team, before I was working with anybody, and I just had the story, I had my desk, and I didn't even draw digitally at this point. I was drawing everything on paper, and I would draw something and then turn around and write the motif or music that was coming to me for that scene. And then I would write something that would inspire an image board, and I would keep writing music and drawing. And that was a very, very fun and interesting time period of working on this film. And it's one of the parts I enjoyed the most. And then I got to work with a wonderful co-composer, Carmine DeFlorio, who is a fellow Berklee College of Music alum, and we obviously, when we met, instantly we hit it off. But he understood exactly what I wanted to execute with the music, and then brought his own expertise and wrote some wonderful music for the film.
That's a funny thing about you. So you said, well, the last 10 years I made the movie. Back then I was 23. But when you started making the movie, you had already a career. There was already one before, right? You had been a widely celebrated musician. You had been a guitar player. Well, the way you play guitar is like you play actually almost two instruments at once, right? You play guitar and kind of percussion almost all at once. So that counts for two in a way. But you had all along also been a pianist, but you had a composer, you had a full classical musical training. But all of that you had done by the time you were 22, 23,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tell us just a little bit about that musical background. So
Yeah.
it's not that you left it behind.
No, I never left music behind. Music is a big part of what I do, and it's a big part of the Glassworker, its story, and Elise's character with the violin. Music is integral to everything for me. And in my creative process, music inspires the drawings inspire music. I'd been drawing and playing music since I was a child, but never thought I would actually do anything with it. It's just something I enjoyed. Then as I got older, I thought Pakistan has no infrastructure for hand-drawn animation, and I didn't really want to go abroad and work at the time. So I thought, okay, I'll pursue music. Music allowed me to go to TED. I was selected for the TED Fellowship in 2012, which changed my life. And actually, TED is a big reason why I ventured back into my obsession with animation, because I remember Elon Musk was there at TED in 2012, and he was talking about SpaceX and Hyperloop. And I remember this moment so vividly because he was talking about taking off the shelf parts and building his rockets. And I thought, okay, he's doing that in space. I can try to do animation on Earth.
All right.
That's how the idea kind of started forming in my head, that it's not as hard as that.
So I just take a normal problem that I solve. I just make an animation. So tell me something about you and glasswork. What fascinates you about?
When I was 14 or 15, I saw the Murano glass blowers in Italy, and I thought the process was so interesting and so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The end result is amazing and it's beautiful, but the process is so interesting. There was a lot of beauty in that process, and I thought, why has nobody made a film on this? And I, again, never thought I would go out and make a film on it. I just thought, why has nobody done this? And then I remember in 2007, a movie called Perfume came out.
Right.
And Perfume was also about the art of perfume making, and also had this other plot alongside.
There was another plot as well. That's
exactly,
right.
the murder mystery aspect of it. But again, when I saw that, I thought, why has nobody made a movie on glass blowing? And then ultimately in like late 2013, 2014, I said, okay, I'll make the movie about glass blowing.
So talk about that's maybe another way of backing into your movie. So glass work or glass blowing, but then there's the other plot, right? So there's I'm by training a historian. So first of all, the whole setting of the movie is in the context of war, right?
Yes.
Of violence. And so all that beauty that exists in the movie, it really is kind of petering on the edge of that. And so one becomes very clearly aware of that. So there's obviously a larger story of sorts that is shaping also. Well, ultimately, we don't want to give the whole plot away, but some of the tragedy of sorts that is there. But tell us something about the two protagonists of that movie and how they relate to each other. So that's also really beautiful. Right?
Thank you. So the Glasswork is about two children from separate walks of life. Vincent, an apprentice glassblower, learning from his father in their artisan glass shop, and Elise, a gifted violinist who's struggling to find her own unique voice on the instrument. And the story follows both characters through their formative years as the growing threat of war begins to strain their relationship. And the film is about creativity, it's about passion, it's about what it means to be an artist when you're surrounded by all this conflict. And that is primarily influenced by the way I grew up in Pakistan. The world changed after 9/11, and there was always this underlying anxiety and tension that something is going to happen. There's so much conflict around me. Thankfully, I'm very, very grateful. I haven't seen anything, but I've always heard of it happening on the outskirts, and that affects you as a child. And you only realize it when you get older. And when I was 23, I wrote this story. I didn't want it to be preachy. I didn't want to base the film in Pakistan because the things that I'm commenting on in the film, it would have become more of a political statement if I had just said it in Pakistan. I wanted
universalized.
I wanted the messaging to be clear, and I wanted people to understand and empathize with the characters and the themes. And ultimately, they're just ideas that I was thinking of at the time and thoughts that I was having at the time. And both the characters, Vincent and Elise, I drew from my own experiences. Vincent being a craftsman, glass blower, an artist, I could understand being an artist. I studied fine arts in school as well, and I understood the craftsmanship side. But being a musician and a composer, I understood Elise's perspective, being a performer and a violinist, and the conversations that both characters have with each other were things that I was grappling with and thinking of at the time. I remember very clearly, I grew up playing classical music, and classical music, of course, is repertoire heavy. You learn your Mozarts and your Beethovens and your Chopins and your Liszt, and I love that. But it's your interpretation of the work that makes you unique, the way you play it. But I always wanted to also write my own music, and I felt like that is when I truly discovered my own voice. Because in art, I was drawing constantly and making my own drawings and characters and things, and that was so freeing. I felt free when I did that in music as well. So that's what the characters grapple with.
So if you think about music and the kind of classical canon, I think one of the very first larger musical pieces that he performed was the Blue Moon Waltz. And so it just reminds me, the waltz is on the one side such a quintessential European, Viennese kind of sound that really captures a particular moment in time, particular aesthetics. But then at the same time, the later pieces, Ravel composes one, which is more the kind of the waltz after the waltz, right? It comes totally undone, so it's at the end. And then there's your interesting Blue Moon of the Waltz, which is not any longer the Viennese waltz, neither of the 19th century, but also a really creative revisiting and then transforming of that as well. So I think even when it comes to the classical music that you have engaged with, I mean, you didn't quite just rehearse it and perform it with. I think finding your own voice was always part of this as well. Do you mind picking up? I mean, we've all along said that you are so talented. Do you mind picking up a guitar just for a moment with us?
Sure.
We just, while it does sound unbelievable that you know all these things, we want to just make sure that everyone has a really good sense that I'm not making this up. You're that multi-talented.
Thank you.
Woo. We could have had you on the show either, obviously because of that, or
Hey, I wasn't used to the guitar.
just because of
A
this,
little different, but yeah.
or just because you, like I, seem to like the color black. So each one of those would have sufficed, but incredible. But I think now I understand how you did it. You just mesmerized everyone that was working with them. And if they were feeling like a little overwhelmed, you just played for them at times and entertained them. Fantastic. You are now, and you will be aware, at Lightbox, after, first of all, the room was filled to the last seat. Then you obviously talked about the movie, the making of all that. And I was like fascinated, but quite honestly, by the time you were done, there was a large number of like, students, animators around you who look at you like as, with great admiration would be an understatement.
I'm very grateful.
They wanted, to touch and to be and to feel and to be there. So really a big inspirational story. And I think, how does that feel now being in that other side, of all of that? You had this of sorts when you were a musician, but you must be now today we're going to show you a movie and you're seen as this incredible icon of a creative mind that has not just produced something, but managed, to do something on a scale that hadn't been done before. So inspiration for so many to come. How does that feel?
Thank you so much, and I'm extremely grateful that I was able to complete the film and get it done because through 10 years is a long time, and a lot of doubts and other things do seep in the middle. Sometimes I wondered if it would ever get done. But as I said earlier, I'm very grateful I got to work with a wonderful team to be able to realize the vision that I had, and I will always be grateful for that. And that's the magical thing about animation. It's it's so universal, and it can appeal to everyone. And Lightbox was amazing. There were so many people who just love the craft of animation. We premiered at Annecy, which is one of the biggest animation festivals in the world. Over there, it was able to move people, and ultimately, that's why. There's this wonderful quote from Walt Disney that I keep paraphrasing, but he said, "We don't make movies to make money. We make movies to make money to make more movies." I think cinema is incredible, and I'm grateful that I got to contribute a small piece to it, and I would like to keep contributing to it. It's a miracle making one movie. I hope if I'm blessed with the opportunity to make another one, I will take everything that I've learned and try to make something even better. But it's a tremendous honor whenever we do share it with people who enjoy it.
So if you don't mind, we already let everyone in onto one of your secrets, your cat that was with you. But family, friends, what ultimately allowed you to go forward with this? What are the things that one needs to have in place? Yes, talent, conviction, you seem to have all of that, but there's probably invariably with each one of us and with you too, there are all these others. That anyone in particular that's you just always think, if it wouldn't been for that person or so, this would have been difficult
I
to
think
achieve.
the most important people, apart from the team that worked on the film, and my partners at the studio. I think the most important people who I need to constantly acknowledge are the people who believed in this vision monetarily, financially, the people who put in the money to allow us to make this, which would be my family, my father, and our investor in California, our investors in California. They believed before anybody believed and allowed me to see this vision through. And of course, again, acknowledging again the amazing team, but without the people who financed it, we wouldn't have been here. And I will always be grateful to them. And I think it was hard initially because everybody who was contributing felt that somebody would eventually come in and save us, uh, who would kind of pay all the bills and be like, we love this project, move forward. But I think when I spoke to them, I told them if we don't believe in ourselves first, nobody else is going to believe in us. We have to have the conviction to move forward. I was extremely transparent about the entire process. I just said I want to make something great, and with your help, I'll be able to do that. So I would have to say thank you to the people who believed and contributed. Yeah.
No, I think there was in your presentation, I think in the audience were actually also a few that had contributed, and there was this humorous moment where one of them, later asked a question, and I think it was like, she said something about the work and that she was actually paid, and so the joke was, well, she was better paid than actually most of you because most of you guys never drew a salary throughout this. So huge enthusiasm and conviction that drove this all along. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see the movie again. We're just minutes away. Thank you again.
Honor to be here. Thank you very much.